So what are your thoughts on this image right here?
Tip culture is going crazy.
Tip culture is going crazy. So what are your thoughts on this image right here? I saw this on Instagram the other day.
Oh, yeah. Inflation, first off.
Yeah, tip inflation.
30, 40, 50%. I mean, I've been places before where I notice something different. Like you see the typical, and then there's a odd one out. Like, what am I looking at here? It looks different. And then what's different about it is the percentage seems to have been changed a little. But I've never seen a 30, 40, 50%, I have to say.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know if
pretty
this
crazy.
is a joke.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is real because, like, obviously it's Instagram, so, you can't really trust anything you see. But
Right.
if it was real, this is outrageous.
Make a lot of people happy.
I mean, imagine you're spending $28 and you see an option on
Not
there.
the one spending,
50%. Yeah, of course. Obviously, they'll be willing to take your money, no problem. But especially with groceries being at an all-time high and food being at an all-time high, it makes you really upset with where things are financially at the moment.
And worst is if you get something like this in a situation where you're like at a place that maybe didn't serve you at all.
Yeah, the service was horrible, and then you're hit with a 50% tip. Like, are you serious? Or, there are places that enforce tips now where, like, you don't even get to choose. I mean, I'm sure you've been at certain places like this where they don't even let you decide if you want to tip. It's just on the bill.
As if though the more people you bring, the less likelihood you're just going to walk away and not pay. It's a weird concept.
But let me ask you this. When you go to Subway or Burger King or Jimmy John's or these, I would say, fast food kind of chains where there's not necessarily a server or someone dealing with the service side of things, what do you feel about tipping then? Like when you go to pay and you do see like the picture shown a 15, 20, almost 25% tip. How do you feel about that?
I'm not going to lie. I tip something. What I tip on there, I don't know. It's not like, the same thing all the time. A few dollars I do, even though I honestly feel that maybe I shouldn't because I wasn't being served by a server. I still do it anyway. And because I'm tipping something, I don't feel too bad about it. But you kind of do like feel forced because
there's a bit of a pressure there.
They even tell you that when you're paying, they're like, it's asking you a question before you and
they're just sitting there watching
and you need to look and you're like, oh, they're asking for a tip.
Yeah. That was the question. It wasn't even like a survey or anything. It's just, how much do you want to tip?
Yeah.
And then obviously if you put 0, you're like, dang, did they make my food already? I hope they don't spit in my food. but yeah, so I don't know.
I feel forced somehow to give something. And I don't mind giving a little something. It's not crazy. Like if I had sat down and ordered a couple $100 meal or something, it's just a few dollars extra. How it gets dispensed among all of the workers there, I don't know, but that's what I would do. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I think it's just getting a little bit ridiculous here in America, though. I think all these kind of fast food chains are jumping on the bandwagon of the tip industry.
Yeah.
And it's giving tips a bad rep because I think it really wasn't as talked about as it is now. It is only talked about now because we're seeing it so often. Almost everywhere you go, like there's asking for a tip, or when you go to pay, it's like 10%, 15%, 20%, just like we saw in the little square. I think it's just so common now that people are like, hey, like, are they trying to, egg more money out of us?
Tip culture is going crazy.
Tip culture is going crazy. Well, being that we aren't servers, when we were out eating the other day, we decided to get the perspective of someone who serves.
Thoughts on the service industry and tipping in general? How important do you think it is for tipping your waiter and waitresses?
Well, for tipping, it's pretty important because most servers in the United States at restaurants only get paid an hourly of like $2 to $3. So they're basically like working for their tips. And if you don't tip them, then that kind of throws off like the rest of their tips for the rest of the night and like how much they're basically making in that shift, since you can only get $2 or $3 an hour, which isn't necessarily okay. It could be different, but it's not different. So that's kind of why we have like a tipping culture, I guess, in the U.S., I feel like.
Yeah.
On a side note, how would you feel if you were a server? Because obviously we're tippers, like we talk about. We are on the other side of tipping.
I'd get tipped really well, I would say, if I were a server, because I'm going to go out of my way to deliver it with smile. I know I'm going to have some bad days. I know I'm going to have days where someone called off and now I'm covering 2 to 3 tables and it might affect my tips, but I'm going to take the good days with the bad days, and just that's the way I look at it. It just comes with the territory. But my intent would be to always deliver with a smile, because I enjoy serving. I've never served in my life in that manner where someone's sitting and I take an order and I deliver food. I haven't done that before. In the service industry, have I been in service? Yes, I have. And it feels good to serve and see someone happy for the services I provided. And that's why I think I'd probably be tipped pretty darn well, because I want that. If I want that tip, I got to work at it. And for me, what works is delivering on time, making them smile, maybe getting to know them for a minute or two, because I know I'm busy, but let them know that you're there and you are human. You're not a robot. Absolutely. And this last one has to do with an experience we just had today. Sorry. And the experience was we were served by a robot. The robot delivered our drinks and our food, but didn't take our plates afterwards. We had to throw away our own food. In a scenario where you walk into a restaurant and had to order your own food through a kiosk and then sit down and be served by a robot. Now, the food was made, obviously, not by robots, but you were served by a robot, and then you put away your own dishes. How do you feel about tipping in a scenario like that?
For that, I would say it probably depends on a lot of things. Like, obviously, like you said, the people were probably working in the kitchen to make their food, but are they getting paid $2 an hour, or are they getting a higher hourly, which they probably are. But personally, if I was served by a robot, I feel like I wouldn't be as inclined to tip them, because, you know, it's not, where's the money going, I guess, is kind of what you'd have to wonder, is who's getting this money.
I said, it's interesting in the video, she mentions, where's the money going? So basically, if we knew that it was going to someone, depending on who it is, obviously, you're more inclined to give. But if you don't know where it's going in a situation with a robot, per se, delivering your goods and services, do you really need a tip? Do they need a tip?
For those who've never been served by a robot, let me play this clip when me and my dad were eating at a restaurant the other day, and we noticed that they had robot servers.
How did you know it, though? How did you know that's mine? That was very interesting. That has to be at least my first. Not sure if that was your first, but overall, what was your takeaway?
It was cool to see that a robot was bringing my little food, and it knew exactly where I sat. I mean, that was a cool part to it, but it definitely did lack the connection, the like human emotion that you get when you experience someone else, like an actual human, not a robot. Obviously, you're gonna lack that when we get into this new age of robots becoming servers, but that's a whole different topic. But how did I feel about the robot itself? I mean, I thought it was cool. I mean, I thought it was funny because it was my first time seeing it, so I thought it was funny, just kind of like, you know, making it was playing music too while it was coming to us, so I thought it was kind of funny. But I mean, down the line, I don't know if we should tip these things, because obviously they're not being paid a salary. I don't know. What did you think about them?
With regard to the tip, I agree with you. Probably didn't need a tip, but then again, do I need a tip when I'm at Subway or Jimmy John's and I feel compelled to, because it's part of the process of paying? So to me, it probably didn't matter whether it was a robot or just being asked that question at the time of paying. So, but overall, I mean, you are right. This is probably the age we're currently in and moving into, where they're going to be replacing these positions. And if you wanted to impress me, I mean, you would have probably had the robot take my order as well.
Take my order, clean the plates up.
Right.
Yeah, done everything.
I know we are like moving into that age where robots are going to be handling all this stuff, but I mean, it just wasn't that impressive to me, because I literally had to place my own order, then go sit down. What was impressive to me was, and I know this isn't a trick or anything, but I was like asking you, how did you know to bring us these drinks?
Yeah, how did it know that we ordered these drinks? And it was definitely something like, well, how did it know where to go? Because obviously there was no one else in the dining room that we sat in, but it kind of knew exactly what table we were. It started turning around and stopped right at our table.
I mean, I know there's a mechanism behind
I'm sure it has a layout,
the process or something that it knew. So overall, again, not impressed, but something to get used to, definitely. Aside from tip culture, now we're going to have the culture of robotics involved with our daily lives.
Yeah, I'm still not tipping those robots, though. I mean...